Okay, there we go.
There we
Hi.
go. Now
Hi,
it looks like it's
everybody.
live.
Here we are at the Mighty. I'm Trish Glowacki, the executive director and founder of the Glowmedia Project. The Glowmedia Project is a nonprofit organization based in Washington, D.C., and we create short films addressing various mental health topics affecting today's youth, mainly adolescents. I'm joined today by Angela Cohen, who is an established producer with films sold to MGM, Orion, and Shorts TV. She's a Sundance Labs finalist for the VR experience, The Art of Saving a Life. She was handpicked by Google to direct a film through their Jumpstart VR initiative and qualified for the 90th Annual Academy Awards with her short film on mental health and family, Without Grace, which she starred in opposite Ann Dowd. Angela founded Charley Bear Productions with a vision to create a shift in perspective.
Leading to social change.
Thank you. Leading to social change. Thank you, Angela. Also with us today is Kayla Berry. Kayla is a recent college grad, co-writer and producer and director, and what else you did for our latest short film, Kayla. Anyway, Kayla is a filmmaker in her own right and just trying to figure out life right now. But she co-wrote The King of the World, which was the latest short film the Glowmedia Project released, which was a year ago now, March 2020, just at the beginning of the shutdown. And so happy to have Kayla and Angela with me today to share their personal stories about mental health challenges and how they've used film as a medium to channel as a coping mechanism and a way to affect change for others and reduce the stigma around mental illness. So, Angela, why don't we start with you? Let's talk about your film, Without Grace, and how you got involved in that.
Sure. Well, as someone who has struggled with anxiety and depression in the past, I absolutely could relate to telling a story of mental health issues, but that film specifically was triggered by some family circumstances I was dealing with at the time. And I found that the only way that I could process it was by writing. And that was my personal creative journey through, processing and coping with being a caregiver and being a family member of someone who is going through mental health issues. And so I really wanted to tell that story to highlight the caregiver's journey. I think that it really, in order to highlight the caregiver's journey, you have to talk about the illness, right? And you have to portray the mental health illness that's going on at the time as well. So I felt like it really encapsulated empathy for all sides, which was really important to me as an actor. I wanted to find more empathy and understand as best I could, without actually going through it, the disorders of the protagonist, Grace. And as a caregiver, I needed to share my journey, because for every 1 in 4 people experiencing a mental health issue, 3 in 4 people know someone or loving or caring for someone that is. So I think it was an important journey for me personally, but I really wanted to put that topic on the stage because at the time that, obviously mental health is still incredibly stigmatized right now, and we're working really hard to change that. But at the time, in particular, when I made the film in, I want to say 16, it came out in 2017, it didn't even have the stage it has now. And now it doesn't have the stage that we wanted to have. So to qualify for the Academy Awards, to have Ann Dowd start in it, who at the time was a mentor and a dear friend and someone who really personally connected with the story, to have her double Emmy nominated at the same time was incredible, because that just it shed more light to the topic that really needed it. And she's quite a role model for people in Hollywood to follow in the footsteps of. When you look at people in Hollywood, that's the people you want to see, to look up to. So I was really honored to work with her and to work with John Doman and get Without Grace out on the stage. And now it's up on Amazon. I think the Mighty shared the link in the chat. Thank you so much. So you can see it. But trigger warning, it does talk about suicide. It does. So if you are, contemplating that, we have resources here that we'll throw up on the screen. It's an intense film, but it honestly portrays the realities of what's going on with mental illness and the difficult challenges that families face.
Thank you, Angela. And everybody, if you have a chance, please check out Without Grace. It's amazing. And for those of you who are not familiar with the actor Ann Dowd, she's also known as Aunt Lydia in The Handmaid's Tale. And what was the other big role she had recently, Angela, that viewers might recognize her from?
She works so much. It's incredible. She was in a ton of Sundance films each year. She's in 6 American Animals. She was on The Leftovers. That was
The Leftovers. That was it.
Yeah, on HBO.
Yeah. So that's a little bit of Angela's background on the film that really brought me to her. I said, okay, this is the director that we want at the Glow Media Project to do our next film, which does address suicide. We will be filming hopefully in November in LA. COVID restrictions are lifting on a daily basis, so we're inching closer to being able to produce again. And in the meantime, we have been working, because we have not been able to film for the past 15 months or whatever it's been. We've been working on a documentary chronicling, watching the mental health of teens throughout this unprecedented time. So we followed, we started with 26 teens in June of 2020. We narrowed it down to 5 who had the most compelling stories and willing to share their journeys with us. And that will be a documentary titled Unimaginable, which will be released hopefully by the end of this year. So that's going to be kind of neat. It'll be just a look back at what this year has been like for teens and how they have coped with the challenges brought on by lockdown and everything else that's happened over the past 15 months. And it's going to be pretty cool, and it's going to be a wonderful tool for educators to use when kids are all back in school in September and everybody looks around and says, what happened? What happened last year? This is going to be a film that will help everybody remember and realize that they weren't in it alone and that we all came through it together, and our teens are resilient and they are strong. We'll talk a little bit more about the documentary later today, but now I would like to talk with Kayla Berry about her film, which the Glow Media Project produced and was released in March 2020, titled King of the World, which tells the story of Kayla's brother. And Kayla, why don't you tell us a little bit about his story and your journey to writing the film?
Yes, I guess I can relate to Angela. I'm sorry if I hope I pronounced that right.
It's Angela.
Angela, okay, to the story of the caregiver, because for a while that's kind of the role I played in my brother's care. And the film King of the World is based off of my brother's experience with bipolar and how I came to working with the Glow Media Project. Honestly, I was abroad when I got a call that my brother had passed away. After battling bipolar for about 10 years, he committed suicide. And I was abroad when I got the call. I came back home, and then I flew back out to finish my studies abroad. And I was in a film program at the time. And I just kind of used all of the emotion that I had at that time and the anger and the frustration and kind of channeled it in the short film that we were creating. And I found that doing that was actually very therapeutic for me. additionally, I felt like I was honoring my brother. He wanted to be an actor and he loved film. The reason partly why I love film so much is because of him. So I felt like I was honoring him by, working and directing a film. I then came back home and my parents said that they had partnered with the Glow Media Project and they were deciding, what they wanted to do. And possibly they said that they might do a film. And so I reached out to Trish and she was really welcoming, allowed me to come on board and work on the film, work and help create a film to honor my brother. And it basically is a story about someone dealing with bipolar and really trying to show what that looks like. I think sometimes what we envision as someone who has bipolar can be different than other people's experiences. And my experience watching my brother was someone who had manic episodes. And so we really were trying to show with the film what a manic episode looked like. And we also wanted to show a big thing with the film was that it's okay to ask for help, or it's okay to receive help when someone is in a manic episode, and that it's not something that is scary. It's just something that happens to someone and it's not who they are, but it's just something that someone may be diagnosed with. So a big part of it was showing that at the end, he does get help and his friends help him. And that's
and it's just, and Kayla really brought her passion to the script and to the set for that film. It's only a 10-minute film. There's not a lot you can do in 10 minutes. So we had to pack in a lot of information in those 10 minutes. And one of the main lessons is that teens can rely on each other. Your peer group is so strong. And in many instances, with a mental health challenge, teens are reluctant to go to ask for help or to go to a teacher, or heaven forbid, tell your parents you're not feeling great for whatever reason. But they will talk to their friends. And in all of our films that the Glow Media Project promote, we have a strong emphasis on peer-to-peer interactions and how they can help each other. And we always have curriculums that go with each of our films. We have 5 films to date: substance misuse, stress and anxiety, bipolar disorder, eating disorders, LGBTQ, and then we'll have the suicide prevention and the documentary later this year. Anyway, they all come with curriculums for educators, parents, guardians, and students, so that the films can be they're taught. Ideally taught in a 2-part health class, two sessions, one week, one the next week, and the guides allow for conversation to start about whatever topic is being addressed in the home, because the parents will have a packet before the students even see the film, and then the students can talk amongst themselves, and then again in the classroom. I want to talk to Angela about how the medium film is such a powerful tool for relating, talking about delicate subjects like mental health. How is that better, or just tell us how it's a good medium for conveying messaging?
Sure. Well, they say a picture is worth 1,000 words, right? So
that's it.
The quickest way to portray feelings, emotions, scenarios. So I think that not only that, but the power of media in our society is huge, right? We see it with the elections, and now we have the opportunity to interpret it in film, whether it's through a documentary where it's real life lived circumstances, whether it's through a narrative like Without Grace, where it's based on a true story, but there's interpretation involved because everybody has a different perspective on life and they're coming from a different POV. or whether it's completely fictionalized in a narrative setting, but it's reflecting always the writer's experiences, the director's vision, the actor's imaginations or lived scenarios, the producer's eye for being able to pull it all together, give it an arc, and bring it into the world and put it out there for people to see. And I'll say what drew me to film was, growing up, we would sit around the TV together as a family, and TV was really impactful for me as a kid. I loved going to the movie theater, but TV's in your house, it's there all the time. So that was the primary way for us all to connect, right? Because in families, you don't get to pick who your family is, right? They say you can pick your friends and you can't pick your family. And so sometimes when you can't communicate, film can do that for you. It can open up the conversation. It can bring up a topic that maybe isn't comfortable, right? Or that is stigmatized in one member of the family, or is another member of the family is terrified to discuss it. But when there's a shared lived experience on the television or in your life, I think that's an opportunity to talk about it. And there's healing involved in that. And that's what creates change. And for me, that's the power of film, is the impact, the social impact it can have on individuals to feel less alone in the world, on families to connect. I think it's the most powerful medium.
Well said. Well said. Totally agree. One thing I wanted to mention about the Glow Media films is that we do have the guides, because our films are very provocative and they raise more questions than they answer. And they're meant to provoke and spark discussion. However, we want to have the guides because we don't want to have a situation like that arose in the wake of the Netflix series 13 Reasons Why. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with that. And wow, that was a really great series. Great. However, it didn't come with any kind of warning, trigger warning, or guide. And it was pretty serious, dark stuff and pretty scary. So while we feel that film is a wonderful medium for portraying these delicate issues, the guides are just as important as the films. Would you agree, Kayla? You're probably the closest to the high school years, having graduated from college 2 years ago. So what was it like? What was your mental health education like in high school?
I know we've talked about this. It's pretty, it was absent, honestly. I have a memory of in high school when my brother had been diagnosed with bipolar, and I was sitting in a biology class, and it was saying that it was giving all these statistics for mental health issues, and they went over bipolar. And I remember like sinking in my chair because I felt like I had this secret that I couldn't share with any of my friends because I didn't know how it would be perceived. And so like that's the most that I talked about mental health, was like in a biology class giving statistics that were essentially saying this is the chance of someone with bipolar disorder doing X, Y, and Z. And so that was the length of mental health education for me. And so I always think of, when working with Trish and the Glow Media Project, about the impact that could have had if in high school I had these resources in the films. And it's not even so much about whether I would have actually started discussing my own personal experiences with my friends, but more so, I think when you introduce a film, especially to students, and you watch it, you are allowing for a conversation to not be directly related to your own personal experiences, which sometimes can be uncomfortable. You can have a conversation about the film itself, and and someone watching it may know, oh, okay, this is my brother or my sibling is going through that right now. And then you see other people talking about it, and people, want to help and they're interested. And then you're like, oh, this is being received this way. Maybe in the future, whenever someone is comfortable, they will be able to share that. So yes, I'm a fan of the films, that, and a fan of having them in the schools. I think it's really, really important.
Yeah, when we do our next, when we produce our next film addressing suicide prevention, which is such a tough topic, we will have not only a prevention guide, but a postvention guide, because suicide is often in the wake of a suicide in a school. There aren't a lot of resources. Often there's a counselor who will come in and talk to the students. Letters will go home to the parents. That's about it. The students can go get, one-on-one hours with a counselor if that's offered. But there's just not a lot of discussion, and a lot of that is because of fear of copycats. And so this film that Angela's going to direct and has co-written, it is going to be a game changer for schools, because it has the step-by-step guides. There will be no reason not to use it, and it can be used in multiple situations: prevention, awareness, and then postvention in the wake of a suicide. I want to pivot back to our documentary for a minute. As Kayla was talking about her high school experience, I think we've had, especially Angela, interviewing these teens over the past 15 months, has had a real eye into the mental health of teens, what they have, what they don't have, what they need, what they want. Angela, can you talk a little bit about the teens we followed in particular, and how they coped with this past year?
Sure. Well, I think with the collective experience of everyone involved in this pandemic, what they don't have is social life. What they've lost is a lot. There was a lot of grief involved in this year for everyone, but particularly for teens in high school, there's the experience of the loss of these sort of epic social experiences that we all had growing up: prom, graduation, homecoming, the school play. One of our teens was supposed to be the lead in the school play. She was first chair clarinet. It was supposed to be her year, is the way she describes it. And it was taken away. And so grieving that loss in the beginning was very real for a lot of them. They didn't have the motivation to go to school and do well because it was just gone. It was a level of shock that people didn't know how to process, and people didn't really give them the tools, right? No one anticipated it. And so the most enlightening and exciting thing that I discovered was they all naturally gravitated toward using their creativity in order to cope, whether it was through baking or singing or dancing, playing the piano or painting. These kids really found it within themselves to heal themselves, right? And when they had trouble, they needed to reach out, and we would hope that they reached out. And that was a challenge, honestly. It has been a challenge. We're still filming with the documentary. They send us video diaries, and they're not always doing great, right? Like, people can put on a mask and put on a face for the world. And I commend these teens for really showing their vulnerability in some of these video diaries, because they did show us their downs as well as their ups. And luckily, the Glow Media Project has an adolescent psychologist on the team that's been able to be there in addition to, our collective knowledge and experience and with mental health to guide us and say, okay, as a documentarian, it's my responsibility to try to be more of a fly on the wall. But in this scenario, we became more personal, closer, and it's mental health. It's a really delicate and important topic where if someone's struggling, you have to get them. I don't want to say you have to get them help. It's not your job to fix them, but it's my responsibility, I think, as a filmmaker, to provide them with resources should they need them. And I would never want to see someone struggling and not ask if there is something that we could do to help or offer support. And that's part of our mission at the Glow Media Project, that's why I love working with you, Trish, and I'm excited to work with you, Kayla, is that the mission is to help heal and provide resources. And and suggest some things, right? But what I thought was the neatest thing was that they creatively coped, and it was a through line amongst all of the teens that we were talking about. Or talking to. And that's such a topic that really is skirted in schools. When there's funding cut, it's always straight from the arts, right?
Mm-hmm.
The arts are never given the precedence that science is or tech is right now. There's tons of like robotics programs being created, which are amazing. And I went to this one robotics lab in California for that high school where we're going to shoot the suicide prevention film. And I was blown away and so impressed. I'm not that old, but we didn't have that in high school. We didn't have a robotics lab, right? And every school has its own resources or lack thereof.
Yeah.
But the arts still historically are underfunded and underserved, and they're helping to heal and create change in people, whether it's a hobby or it becomes a profession. And so I think that that's sort of the post-vention or the aftermath potential impact of this documentary, as well as not only the coping skills that people can reach for that maybe they're not comfortable with because they haven't been cultivated in school or at home, but also schools stepping up, the government stepping up, private organizations stepping up to make sure the arts are well funded.
Well, excellent point, Angela. And that is what we do at the Glow Media Project. We use the arts to address mental health challenges, two areas that are so underfunded in most school systems. Some are luckier than others, but most do not have the budgets for either one of those topics. So we've combined them. And I'm glad you mentioned the adolescent psychologist. We do have a psychologist on staff at the Glow Media Project. Her name's Andrea Hansel. She was unable to be with us today, but she co-writes the scripts and makes sure that we adhere to all the criteria, the relative criteria to whichever mental health topic we are addressing in our films, and make sure that we get it right. We have the right resources listed. We consult with experts in the field of whichever topic we are addressing to make sure that we get it right. And the other cool thing about our films, I don't think I mentioned this, but they're free. Did I say that? All of our materials are available on our website, glowmedia.org, films and guides free of charge. So none of the three of us on this call today are mental health professionals. What we have in common is a passion for the arts, in particular film, and we have shared history with mental health challenges. Angela has it in her family. Kayla lost her brother. I sadly lost a son to an OxyContin overdose, accidental, 10 years ago. And that's what started my journey of healing through film. And so it's a labor of love. But when we started this, after Charley, my son, died 10 years ago, and I wrote the first film about prescription medicine misuse, we toured that around the country in 2014. I thought, oh, this will be old news. No one's going to be talking about this. Yeah, right. It is still headline news, and now people are calling me, oh, remember that film we didn't want to show back when you released it? Yeah, we need it now. And what else do you have? Because your approach to this topic is really resonating with the kids, which is why we have the other films in our library of shorts, all of which can be found on the website. Anyway, are there any questions from the viewers today? I haven't seen much in the chat box, but I may not have the right chat box up. Or anything, Kayla, you or Angela want to add to this conversation that maybe we haven't touched on?
I wanted to just thank the Mighty to start. I have been so excited and impressed with the level of content that the Mighty is putting out, whether it be in an empathetic way to relate to situations that you yourself are struggling with, whether it's grief or loss. They cover medical troubles as well as mental health issues. Those are often comorbid scenarios. And when I use these words, I actually was a neuroscience major in my undergrad. So, oh, are you really?
I'm a narrow maid.
That's amazing.
We end up in film.
Mhm.
I know people don't understand it, but
Yeah.
I mean, I think it really is. Film is really that overlap of art and science in a lot of ways, and especially the study of behavior, which I studied neuroscience and behavioral biology. And so, I'm off topic though.
Yeah, that's okay.
I wanted to thank the Mighty because, you know, I read their bipolar bites, which I don't have bipolar, but it's really relatable and it's really, you can, you know, people in my family have suffered from it or live with it. Right. And so it helps to just show the different colors, the different sides of different kinds of mental illnesses. And then it helps you relate, right? Like I mentioned before, I've struggled with anxiety and depression myself, and we've all had a collective trauma this year with the pandemic. And for people who never experienced it, a trauma or a loss, you've had it now, right? And so the anxiety of going outside and catching COVID, or of hugging someone, of touching something, it became so minuscule, so small, that really blew it up so big. People were isolated and alone. People were anxious. People were coping with the loss of what they thought this year was going to be. And I really think that the Mighty provides incredible resources to, so I just want to thank them and thank them for having us today.
Yeah, I echo that, Angela. Thank you, the Mighty. You do incredible work. You're a wonderful resource.
I wanted to, I think the same thing. I think the Mighty and the Glow Media Project, for me, as someone who, I do get on social media a lot and I do follow, you know, different organizations, and I am grateful for the Mighty and the Glow Media Project because they don't shy away from discussing mental illnesses that I feel like may not be as talked about. I think the mental health movement is moving in an amazing direction where we're talking about, you know, our mental health. But I sometimes feel like that certain mental illnesses are left out of the conversation because they may not be comfortable to talk about, or people may not understand them completely. And because everybody can, you know, have days where they feel sad or anxious, the conversation, we talk about that. And that's amazing because we haven't been able to have those conversations before. You haven't been able to go to a friend and say, hey, I'm feeling down today. But what I've noticed with the Mighty and Glow Media Project is they include mental illnesses that are not necessarily even being talked about as much now into their work. And that is something that I'm very grateful for, especially having a loved one who had bipolar. And it's just amazing work. So thank you. Thank you both, Trish and the Mighty.
Yeah, thank you, Angela and Kayla, for joining me today. Thank you, Camera, and the whole team at the Mighty. Thanks for being here.